What's a good anime word for exciting?
In English?
It doesn't have to be English.
I mean, kakoi is cool.
Kakoi?
Yeah.
So if I said, welcome to a Kakoi new episode, would that work? All right, we're doing that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Kakoi new episode of the StudioMEcast. We are coming to you from StudioME Speakeasy, and if you like the look and sound of this podcast, well, you can book it yourself on the StudioMe.me website and start your own podcast. Today, I am joined in the studio by Ray Youngblood for RaiZarts, and we're going to be talking about something really exciting, which is he has completed the first issue of his own original comic book series. Ray and I go back a little while now, actually, and we're just here to talk about his art and what he's got going on. Of course, all that stuff's going to be in the description as well if you want to follow up on this kind of thing, and if you're the kind of person who subscribes, go for it. But Ray, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me. This is just really awesome.
Absolutely. How have you been?
Busy. But it's been great, man. Like, life is an adventure, and it's weird. It's like I kind of get to be my own shonen protagonist in the real world. It's really cool.
That's fantastic. Like, being a busy artist is a very good thing.
Yes.
So
yes.
you sent me the first issue of this. Why don't you just, like, for someone who's like, hey, what's your comic book about? What's the synopsis for us?
Gotcha. Two brothers witness their father get murdered by an angel when they're younger. When a mysterious girl comes saying that she has answers, will she lead them towards their destiny or to their doom?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love stories that are about brothers in general.
Yeah.
I mean, on a personal level, it's like I'm close with my brother, you know, and he and I really bonded a lot over watching fullmetal alchemist together.
Mm-hmm.
When I think I was like 16 when we were watching that. And I got to see a lot of cool things that I'm guessing are inspirations for you with this, but it's always fun for me to see something new that's like, this is your idea, man. you know. So this first issue, what was the initial, like, you're an artist, you draw, you illustrate. You could have had this be about anything, I suppose, but what made you compelled to tell this story?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Fullmetal Alchemist is definitely a major inspiration. In my personal life, I lost a parent at a young age, and so being able to have that support, even though it's just my imagination, being able to tell a story of brothers and them being able to support each other and to grow with each other through their heartache and through their grief is really inspiring for me.
Absolutely. It's definitely, it comes across clearly as the heart of the story already, which just after, you know, setting everything up in the first issue, it's efficient, it's good, I like it.
Yeah.
And it's called Twilight Angel.
Yes, it is.
Very cool title. Two of my favorite words, I would say. I'm an angel geek, you know. But the two characters also, some of this is going to be me just telling you stuff you already know. Sure. I guess, sorry. But I love that the two characters are distinct. They're clear in their personalities, you know, and they definitely have a familiar, older, younger brother dynamic going on. Yeah. So the art style you have for this, it's also a lot of anime influence.
Absolutely.
For it. Want you talk a bit about that? Like, you're an anime fan, you like reading manga and all that. Yes. How'd you get into that?
So, man, I've been watching anime my entire life, basically. It's weird. So a lot of times people are like, well, what's your first anime? And I think my first anime that I knew was anime was probably Inuyasha. But I watched Dragon Ball, of course, and Monster Rancher and Digimon and Sailor Moon. And if you're a guy and you haven't watched Sailor Moon yet, what's wrong with you? Go watch Sailor Moon. It's really good.
I gotta watch it then. I guess.
Yeah.
I got into anime really late, actually. like I said, Fullmetal Alchemist was my first anime.
Brotherhood or the
The original. It did. I don't think Brotherhood was even out yet.
Okay.
Because
okay.
for those of you who don't, well, why can you explain why there's two different FMA series?
I can.
Actually?
So, in manga, a lot of times manga gets picked up before the story is complete. And with Fullmetal Alchemist, they knew that they were going to have to do their own anime original ending. What that means is that they're not following the manga anymore. And so, instead of like adding filler and a lot of unnecessary stuff to kind of bloat the story, they just diverged, which I think was really, really smart. It creates two separate identities for the 2003 anime and the 2009 anime. And it also creates two different moods with it as well. Whereas I think that the 2003 anime is a character-driven story that really focuses on the darkness in human hearts and trying to find like light within that. The 2009 anime is a lot more hopeful and a lot more action adventure-y, and it's more typical shonen. I am someone who likes a character-driven story. I'm someone who likes kind of like, I guess, angstiness and edginess, with a little bit of humor in there sprinkled in. So the 2003 series hit me right in all the right feels. Mm-hmm. But Brotherhood's not bad either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember watching the original series for the first time and being introduced properly to this art. Like, I knew what anime was, like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon is everywhere, right? Yeah, but watching one of these shows for the first times and being just introduced to this art form in such an insane way and just loving that show and still do. And I think it definitely inspired me for some of the things that I've gone on to make, or even through today. You know, art affects you, you know.
Yes, yes, it does.
But for this first issue, they've come out with Twilight Angel. First, like, I mean, I don't want to sound too much like I'm giving a review too much, but it's like, I like that the characters are distinct. I like when how the way that information is introduced to the reader. I like how it's setting something up without it just feeling like, oh, we're just getting things ready to go somewhere. It's like, it's exciting. You know, I enjoy it. And so one of the things that I want to know about you as an artist, is this your first original comic?
Yes.
That's crazy, because you've been drawing forever.
Yes.
And I see your posts on Facebook and like drawings, oh, here's a commission or all this stuff that you do. And then this comic, it's like, yes. How long did it take you to do this?
You want the truth or?
Always, man.
Oh, man. So, that first chapter, how old do you think that I was whenever I wrote that first chapter?
Oh, man. I gotta guess. I'm gonna say, well, how old are you now? Right now?
33.
Okay, you're 33. 17?
14.
Ah, what?
Yeah, I wrote that first chapter when I was 14. Wow. Even though I didn't graduate with an animation degree, like originally planned, my entire life has been about making my artwork look pro. And I've been rehearsing this chapter over and over and over for half my life. That's kind of crazy to say out loud. But I knew that I didn't want the world to see it until it was good enough. I've gotten out of this perfection mentality because, you know, like now that I'm a full-time illustrator, I realize there are deadlines and people are waiting for your work. And so do your best, but also be realistic with yourself. And so I just finally pulled the trigger, got it done. As far as the actual time for this specific iteration of this first chapter, it took me about 3 months of dedicated time to pencil, ink, and color everything.
Wow.
Twilight Angel will be full color, by the way. Like, that wasn't just the first chapter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
What a cool passion project to have as well. Like, and to have something. Oh man, can I ask you a slightly personal question?
Sure.
That it relates to this, I think.
Of course.
But, you mentioned that one of your parents had died.
Yeah, my mom.
Was how old were you?
I was 11.
11.
Yeah.
And when you were 14, you came up with this.
Yeah. So I had another tragedy in my life around that time. My older brother actually passed away this summer before I came up with this concept. And, like, even though my dad's great, I was basically raised by my brother before that. And so losing him and losing my mom was just kind of a lot. And, instead of digging into alcohol or drugs and partying and, things like that, I just got further into the art. And it was challenging because although I am both an older and younger brother, I found that writing Arcane was hard after, like getting older and realizing like the responsibilities of being an older brother. And we'll dig into that later on in the story, but Arcane has a lot that he's dealing with just off the fact that he has to take care of Shiro and he's barely an adult himself. Mm-hmm. So, he's 19, so he's been taking care of his brother for the last 10 years. And that's really rough, you know.
And as that younger brother starts to, grow, he's always going to be his younger brother, but I imagine that there's some pressure to stay ahead so that he can be that support.
Yep.
And that answer they can go to, you know. And wow, man, yeah, that's it's always what's the word here? Because I'm gonna say something I'm sure almost everybody on the planet really thinks, but when someone goes through something and is able to make something good and something that other people can even enjoy, whether it's through comedy, art, and this comic, it's one of those things where someone could read this and not know all that stuff. But having that knowledge about this and seeing how something so cool and fun, that you're able to do this, and seeing that it's like, you didn't go into these other ways of coping that a lot of people understandably do, is really just, it's cool. Like, sometimes that's what it's all about, you know? And when you do that and make something like this, it's like for the next kid who's maybe dealing with that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Being able to find this as a personal resource, a comfort in a way. It's like saying before with Fullmetal Alchemist, it's like my brother and I really, my perception of it was that he and I really became, I think I got better at being a brother as a result of watching that in a way. But you've now contributed to this great tradition of humanity of, putting something out there that, it's really special, man. That's awesome.
Thank you so
having
much.
a hard time putting this into words. My heart is just like bursting right now, but dude, good for you, man.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah, this is awesome. And you're, have you written the rest of it? Like, I imagine you know where it's going.
Yeah. So I have the first 12 chapters written. And then I have a timeline of events breaking down the different story arcs that are going to happen. So I know the entire story. I have the ending actually written as well. Uh, and yeah, no, I think you guys are going to be in for a wild ride.
I'm excited, man. So we've got this coming together real quick. I don't want to save this for till just the very end. Where can people find this?
So right now, it is on my Gumroad. If you type in gumroad.com/RaiZarts, you'll be able to find the Twilight Angel comic there. But if you become a member of my Patreon, you can get access to it there, as well as access to the next couple chapters as they come out before I release them publicly for the world.
Wonderful.
And in summer, chapter 3 should be done. And so at that time, I'm going to compile them all into one physical release to distribute at anime conventions I'm going to be at.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So get in the description, people. You know what to do. So there's a lot of action in this. And with action, a lot of the time, hey, it's a lot of movement.
Sure.
Translating that movement to comics, was that... I guess I'm almost like, what's my question here? What was, on a technical level, what was the most difficult thing for you to capture in this? Was it the action? What was, yeah.
Yeah, fight choreography is challenging. A lot more challenging than I've ever given anyone credit for. It's rough. I mean, you're a filmmaker, you know this. Figuring out what to keep and what to get rid of is also a bit of a challenge because my story, although fights are important, they're the vehicle towards furthering the narrative. This isn't like a John Wick or a Nobody. Nothing wrong with those films. But I want the story to kind of supersede the action. But I also want to give people something visually interesting to look at as well. And so trying to find that balance was challenging but fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's during the fights in it, I'm gonna try and stay away from spoilers, I suppose, but like the fights, like they tell you about the characters.
Yeah.
You get to, especially like just what the dynamic between the brothers is, and so you're good job. It's working. It's working, man. It's working for me. So. Yeah, when you're choreographing these fights and stuff, how are you conceptualizing these? Are you like, going around being like, all right, it goes like that. It is, like, are you just doing it by pose? Like, what's your process of working through a fight?
So I kind of break up my fights into the same 3-act structure that like movies are written with. There's the beginning, the middle, and the end. I know that at the beginning, I need this to be the conflict that starts off the fight. And then I know that at the end, I need this resolution to come, whether it's comedic gag, like the first fight, or it's leading towards some type of cliffhanger, which is like the end of the second fight. And the middle is just the vehicle to kind of get us from point A to point B. And so I watch a lot of movies, read a lot of manga. If I see that like a certain character moves this way, I'm like, oh, that's really similar to what I'm looking for. And so I figure out ways to tweak it and just doing a lot of studying, honestly.
Do you choreograph the fight before you start drawing it, or do you find it as you go?
I choreographed the fight before I started. So before I actually ink and finish my pages, I do thumbnails. And there were about 6 different iterations of that very first fight in the comic. I did a thumbnail. I'm like, oh, that looks good. No, it doesn't. Oh, that looks good. Oh, you know what? If I take this idea and I merge it with that idea, that would be better. And so, yeah, thumbnailing is super important. Like, if you're a comic artist out there, I know you want to get your story out. I know it's super important. Take your time, thumbnail your stuff. It's super, super, super important.
And working general to specific,
Yeah.
it saves a lot of undoing work
Yes.
later. Was that something that, now you mentioned before you didn't graduate with an animation degree,
Sure.
but were your drawing skills something that you learned in art school?
Yes and no. So, my professional art journey is a bit of a mishmash. So, I went to art school in middle school, 7th and 8th grade. Halfway through my 9th grade year, we moved back to Pittsburgh. So I lived in North Carolina during that time. And it was the coolest school ever, dude. Like, we all had majors and minors. Yeah, Northwest School
In
of the
middle
Arts.
school?
Yeah. So, like, my major
Cool.
was fine arts, and my minor was choir. And so, like, the school was divided up between 5 different buildings. Each kid had their own individual schedule. It was like college. And so, like, you had to take your core classes or whatnot. But, like, you have your home room, and then you're just dispersed to go wherever you need to go. I did not appreciate the school that I had at the time. So I learned, but I didn't. I was under the idea, and a lot of middle schoolers are like this. I thought that, I want to draw cartoons. What am I drawing this portrait for? Why am I drawing these still lifes? And I didn't appreciate it. Now I'm on YouTube at 3 o'clock in the morning looking up, how do you do 3-point perspective? It drives me nuts. But so I had those 2 years. Before that, I was just drawing off of references and from imagination. And then in college, my first year at Edinburgh, I was an animation major. My animation instructor did not like anime. And so...
Was his name John?
No, it was Mike.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Yep. And, like, here's the thing. I think that he had the best intentions because he did a lot of work, like, with Disney and things like that. And so he was more so just trying to embed in us what he knew. But I wasn't receiving that. And so I came to a crossroads. Do I keep pushing through this degree when I don't think that my art form is respected yet? Or do I figure something else out to make money in the meantime, continue practicing my art skills, and know that I can still carve a path for myself? I've always liked the hard way, so I followed option 2.
That's such a, I can see what you mean by, at the beginning of this, talking about life's an adventure. It's like the narrative of your life is interesting.
Thank you.
And so you did start with that stuff, but then with like art school and everything, but then carved your own way through it. Now, one of the things that I like looking at when I'm reading a comic is I like to look at the panel structure. I don't know if this is the right term or anything like that.
It is. Yep.
Hell yeah. And I just pulled that out of nowhere. Anyway, but the panel structure of because that's where a lot of the movement comes from. It's like where it's a still thing, but whether you've got, I think, the splash pages or like the full like if you have, there's the battle with all the Avengers or whatever, but then whether you have repetitive shapes of panels to kind of like imply the rhythm to a conversation and the dialogue, and then or like the lead up to a big moment in a fight or something. I really enjoyed the panel structure of this thing. It was dynamic. It was creative. It wasn't like it was clearly something that you were thinking about while you were doing it.
Thank you.
It wasn't just like, I guess this one's a square. I guess this one's a rectangle. It's like, no, it had a movement and logic behind it, and thought and like artistic expression, which because a lot of these drawings are just like bursting on this thing. You've got, like, your color palette is like, you got all these super bright colors and stuff. You've got this really, tonally, to me, it's like, even though we got, like, you know, fights, you know, it's like, it's still fun to look at.
Thank you.
Know, it's an approachable kind of color palette and art style to it. It's in one of my favorite animes is Death Note.
Nice.
Right? But like, if I tried to show that to someone who was 12, first off, probably maybe a little inappropriate. But
yeah.
but my point is, it's like this. That's an anime that's like, kids aren't supposed to like it necessarily. What's a better example here? The movie. I mean, let's take Oppenheimer, the movie Oppenheimer, because
Sure.
we've been talking about that lately on this podcast. For
Excellent film,
yeah.
by the way. Oh,
but
my goodness.
definitely a movie that, like, a kid is not going to like.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just, like, it's that kind of thing. Versus, like, same filmmaker, Batman.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
everybody loves it. I like that you have this story that's about two brothers, and I like that it's accessible to a wide range of ages.
Thank you.
'Cause that's something that I'm not thinking of anybody in particular, but sometimes I feel like some people don't think about what their audience is. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, to like this panel structure and stuff, I'd say, do you derive any inspiration in your art style from things other than anime and manga?
Wow, that's a great question. Man. So, as far as the actual panel structure, I think that it's mostly manga. But as far as storytelling techniques, yeah, I love a good drama. I really, really, really do. I love movies where you really get to know the character by the end of it. And although it has nothing to do with Twilight Angel, the movie that's coming to mind right now is Fresh. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, sorry.
It's about a kid who lives in the hood, and he realizes that he doesn't have the same, like, I guess, quote unquote hood mentality as everyone else, and so he plays a lot of chess, and uses his mind to be able to pull him out of really risky and dangerous situations to be able to provide a better life for him and his family. But even though, like, there were all these big Goliaths around him trying to take him out, he approached life in a way where he was just really introspective, and he wasn't very reactionary. He took a step back and, like, looked at the world around him and was able to kind of, like, put everything together in a non-villainous Machiavellian way.
That's, I mean, I'm sold. I want to see this movie,
It's
man.
really
That
good.
sounds awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's really
what
good.
a pitch. Jeez.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. When did that come out?
Oh, man, probably like 98 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an older film.
Yeah. Who's in it? All right. Well, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. There's but that kind of thing inspired you as
yeah.
well?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's do you have a favorite movie?
Fresh is one of them. Man, this is one of those questions where if you're by yourself, you know the answer. As soon as you get in front of someone, yeah. Man, that is a great question. It's not my favorite movie by any means. It's my favorite recent movie, Sonic 2. I know that's a wild response, but I'm just so proud of, like, the Sonic movie franchise.
Honestly, it's like I think, as good as it can be.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
The first one I watched, I'm like, huh. I mean, if you're going to make a Sonic movie, that's probably about as good as it, like, I mean, I like Sonic. I love him. You know, I'm not like, oh, that's as good as you can. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Sonic 1 was safe. I think it was really smart for them to do the buddy cop thing.
Mm-hmm.
Introduce us to Sonic and like his interesting personality. But using Sonic 2 as kind of like the lore driver was really smart as well, because you already have an established audience, and now you get to have people know who the Sonic characters are.
Yeah. I've always loved Knuckles the most, so.
I'm a Tails guy.
You're a Tails guy?
Yeah.
Knuckles
Fresh.
is
I mean,
always
you
been
know.
my favorite. It's whenever my brother and I would play. Anybody remember the Eagle's Nest at Giant Eagle?
Yes.
That's
Dude.
we
You
didn't
play Sonic Adventure 1? Oh my gosh.
because we didn't have video games in like our house until like I was a bit older, and like we'd play video games like at friends' house or cousins or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we were going to Giant Eagle, it's like we get to play video games. Yes.
Man.
I'm like, okay, I get to be Knuckles again, you know, or Donatello, and my brother would be Leonardo, you know, and he'd be Sonic, who I think is a little bit faster. So
Wait a second.
You know, no wonder he always won.
Is
But-
Donnie your favorite turtle?
Yeah.
Mine too.
Dude,
Yes. I
Hell-
love that. That's great.
I have a turtle named Donatello.
That's awesome.
He's about 20.
Wow.
Yeah, I got him when I was 11. So
Wow.
He had a brother, Raphael.
Of course.
Yeah, and I came around to liking Mikey more. The only Ninja Turtle I dislike Leonardo. But
Really?
I don't like him. Sorry.
Even did you watch Rise of the?
No. I've seen some of the original animated. I've seen the original live action Jim Henson Company one, which is honestly kind of an awesome movie.
Yeah.
Still, it's like, man, this is kind of a rough, dark, big, awesome. I love it. And I liked the second one. I understand it's not as good as the first one, The Secret of the Ooze one. I liked it.
I did
though.
too.
You know, it's fun. But I like that they kind of made Donnie more of a main character in the second one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Donatello is always my favorite Ninja Turtle, and but yeah, my turtle's brother Raphael died under mysterious circumstances.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's but that turtle had this is gonna sound funny, but it's totally true. The best funeral I've ever been to was Raphael's funeral.
Okay, you can't just say that without explaining.
I might cut this because it's personal, but I'll tell you what happened.
Okay.
So, in summer 2016, I was on staff at a Boy Scout camp. I was the mountain man director, and for like the first-year campers. But you don't say first-year campers because then they'd probably get roasted or something. So it's the mountain man program for that particular camp I was at.
Sounds really
It's
cool.
like, hell yeah. And it was best job ever. And but you know, I'd be there all summer, but sometimes on weekends I'd go home. You know, because there's no camp. You know, and but I came back one weekend and Raph was just dead, and I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. He didn't seem sick. He's in the same tank as Donnie, so
Right.
I got suspicious that maybe Donnie kind of like, you know, held him under or something.
Oh man.
I don't know, but I also think Donnie got depressed. I don't know anything about turtles. Sorry.
No.
I've had them for 20 years, and I'm like, I know nothing now. But which is what I learned. But Donnie didn't eat for like a year after that.
Wow.
Like, I'd try to feed him, and he just wouldn't do anything. I think he was depressed. But anyway, sorry, the whole point of this is the story of Raphael's funeral. So at that Boy Scout camp, there was a lake.
Sure.
And if we zoom in super close here, I'm wearing a little pin that says Isle of Man, which you can see there.
Nice.
Which has a little Manx cat on the top, and it's got the Triskelion, the 3 legs of man. And long story short, my Nana her maiden name was Crane, which originates on the Isle of Man. It's one of the oldest names as long as they have records on the Isle of Man. That name's been there.
Wow.
And the Isle of Man is a place where the Vikings eventually settled at one point. So Vikings is a big part of the history. My family lineage, I believe, I don't have all the dates on mind at the moment, but I'm pretty sure family names are recorded from before the time even the Vikings showed up. Either way, Viking is part of the actual heritage. They reenact the Vikings landing every year. You know, it's a thing. Anyway, so, and of course, when you're a little kid and you find out you're descended from Vikings, you're like, hell yeah, man. Right. and then you find out what Vikings were like. But there's, and then you're like, absolutely. No, I'm kidding. Anyway.
He's not kidding.
I'm going on tangents here, but, and some people might know where I'm leading up to this. Raphael had an honest-to-goodness Viking funeral. Me and the staff, some of the best people I've ever worked with or met. They were super cool. Like, it was, my dad told, he was also on staff, he's like, hey, Peter's turtle died. He's had him since he was 11. And we, at night, went out onto the lake in canoes.
Nice.
Glass water. Like, it's like stars reflecting in the lake, you know. And we had built a little Viking ship.
Okay.
And Donnie was in there.
Two coins on his eyes?
His face is kind of like that. But with the sail of it had the Triskelion of the Isle of Man. And put it in the water there. And as we lit it, we recited it's a really famous Viking funeral thing. It's like, lo, do I see my father? Lo, do I see my mother? Lo, do I see my people? Stretching back to the beginning and all that. And had a little eulogy of, like, you know, Raphael was not like other turtles. You know, it's like when you'd come into the room, he'd swim at you. He's very social and friendly. And, you know, there's little things to say. So it was kind of like real. We talked about him and then recited this thing. And as the Viking ship lit up, it was one of the most incredible looking things ever. Even it's like this little Viking boat that we had built.
Right.
You know, it's like that reflecting on the water, and you think a lot of things could go wrong, like, oh, it goes out or whatever. But no, it burned all the way just and sunk into the lake until at the very last there were sparks just skipping across the surface of the lake.
That's really cool.
Just a little bit of smoke going there.
Yeah.
And then when we paddled back to shore, we all drank mead. So when Donnie dies, I'm going to probably have to go to the same lake and be like, here's your brother, you know, do something like that. But yeah, everybody who was there was like, you know, on the one hand, it's like, hey, this is a turtle, you know, but it really was like you got there and did all that, and everyone's like, man, if my funeral is like nearly this cool.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, dang. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, coolest funeral I ever been to was the Viking funeral for Raphael, my turtle, who I had for many years. So
yeah, I definitely don't want Donnie to die anytime soon. But when that time comes, please invite me to the funeral. I would love to be there.
Hey, Ray, okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Totally hijacked the entire thing.
No, I love that. That was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, but yeah, it's like on an outside view, I'm like, I could see how this could seem silly, but it was very sincere and everyone was really into it, and I still think about that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the coolest funeral ever. I was like, man, that was anyway. I forget if we played music too, because there were a lot of musicians on staff that year. So I don't know, doesn't matter. But anyway, yeah, Donatello's my favorite Ninja Turtle though.
Nice.
And video games, Sonic, bringing it back. There's a shot in the second Sonic movie.
Yeah.
Sonic's running across the water.
Mm-hmm.
And the waves are huge. And there's just this shot it's this wide angle of like him running up, and there's like this huge wave, and it like goes into slow motion, and the movie's like, look at this, and I'm just like, how I paused it, and I was just like, what is this shot doing in a Sonic movie? It looks like, I don't know, the art on a Magic the Gathering card or something. Like it was so cool, and I love. I think. Yeah, Knuckles has always been my guy. I thought they did him justice as well. He was so cool. I'm looking forward to the next one. You know?
I mean, I'm looking forward to the Knuckles TV show next one.
Are they doing a TV show?
Yep. It's going to be on Paramount Plus.
Hell yeah. I'm thinking about getting Paramount Plus because I like Star Trek. And they took it off of everything for that, which is bad form ever. I was watching Next Generation, and then it just suddenly it wasn't there, but whatever.
Yeah, streaming, they're going to have to come up to something because, I mean, like, we can't keep doing this.
Have you ever considered a career in piracy?
You know, if it weren't for the fact that I'm making a comic that I don't want to get pirated, I think I would have stayed a pirate. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, digging into... don't get me wrong, there are a lot of industry practices that I don't agree with. And I really do think that the employees should be paid more. But I wish that companies would understand that piracy is more of a service issue than anything else. They have to pirate because there are no feasible ways of getting stuff. Or it's so spread thin between 10, 15 different streaming services that it just becomes a nightmare to try to keep hold of. Mm-hmm. So I don't judge pirates, but I definitely, I try to stay away from it if I can.
Yeah. One of the only times, because I was like, I'm a filmmaker, I'm not going to do piracy, but the times where I have done that have been when...
Do we need to cut this? Because
I'm not saying what film I pirated.
Nice.
But there are a couple films that like I could not find anywhere. Like they weren't on any streaming services. They weren't at the Exchange on McKnight Road, which is usually the Exchange. They're not sponsoring this show. The Exchange usually has what I'm looking for.
Yep.
And if they don't, it's because nobody has it, like they didn't have a copy of Lawrence of Arabia in 4K because nobody did.
Right.
If you went on eBay, they were like $200. It was stupid. It's like, and I finally got one after the price finally went down. Thank goodness, because I'm not spending $200 on one of the most amazing movies ever. But piracy. I think these streaming services, it's a process. Things are getting figured out. That's what a lot of the strikes were about.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the whole point of streaming is that it was supposed to be convenient. And now, with like Paramount's got this and Disney has that. And, Apple TV's got its own show. And Netflix. It used to basically just be Netflix, right? And that now it's like... I don't want to have a dozen different streaming services. That kind of ruins the point.
Yep, my wallet doesn't want to have a dozen different streaming services.
What would really break it down is libraries. If people started renting, like just, not renting, because it's free.
Right.
Checking stuff out from libraries when they come out on DVD, which some people do. It's one of the, I don't know if it's like a best kept secret or if just people aren't in the habit of going to libraries. But
anymore.
Yeah, it's like of course, if people did that to the point where it was like hurting streaming, then they just wouldn't release DVDs of anything. So
that's true.
Yeah. But, hey, we'll figure it out because, look, people want to make movies. People want to watch movies. People are willing to pay something to see it, and if your business model is supposed to be this is more convenient and it has suddenly become way less convenient than it ever was. Like if it's less convenient than when I'd go down to Eagle Video and pick out a new Looney Tunes cartoon or something like that. If it's, still figuring it out.
Yeah. And like It's really tough. Cause kind of just going off of what you just said with streaming, man. Like, so in 2020, during the pandemic, I became the biggest anime collector of all time. Reason being is because all of my anime were taken off of the streaming services. Like, now granted, there are some that I haven't like looked for like 10 years plus, but they were gone. And I was like, yo, what is this? So I just started buying a bunch of Blu-rays and DVDs of all my old stuff. Birdie the Mighty Decode, Blood Plus, Fullmetal Alchemist 03, which, can we just talk about that for like...
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's... Fullmetal Alchemist 03, or...
Yeah, so...
I'm due for a rewatch, too, on that.
You're not going to find it unless you borrow my DVD.
Oh, I think I have... Wait, why?
Because they've taken it away from everywhere. The only way to watch Fullmetal Alchemist is to watch Brotherhood. But get this. They still have the Conqueror of Shambhala movie on streaming.
Why? What happened?
Exactly. I have no idea. I'm assuming that they just didn't renew the license for this series. But Brotherhood's great. Like, it is. But in my opinion, if you hop straight into Brotherhood without having read the manga or watched the 03 series, you're missing a lot of character nuance there. There's character death that's really important. And I know it's like a 20-year-old series, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
But there is a character death that like is super prominent, and Brotherhood, in my opinion, glosses over it.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about because I felt the same way.
Yeah.
Is it... I mean, they show it in Brotherhood, but it is not nearly as impactful.
Because the character isn't nearly as impactful. He doesn't spend as much time with the brothers as he does in the first series. They go to this character's house, but like, it's very quick. I believe this character actually dies in Brotherhood by like the 9th episode. Whereas in 2003, he dies in like the 23rd episode or something like that.
Way more down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say, I'm definitely due for a rewatch because when I watched the 03 one, I thought this is the greatest bit of like storytelling media I've ever seen in my life. I was like, this is, I didn't know anything could be this good.
Yeah.
It was so incredible. And then, and I like the movie, Conqueror of Shambhala, that they did. I wish it had a bit more humor in it, because that's something about the show. But I'm like, you know what? I eventually came around to thinking, like, I like how they concluded this story. And Brotherhood, when that finally gets going, like, I think the first episodes where it's similar to 03, it's not as strong at all.
Right.
But once, and part of it's because they did as well as you could in the 03 version, and they couldn't just replay the episode, so they had to redo it, and it's just not as good. But when that show gets going, it was blowing my mind how awesome it was, and I eventually, by the time I was done with Brotherhood, I preferred it over the 03 one.
Okay.
But if I watch them again, I'm not sure how I would. I mean, I might prefer the 03 one, because one of the things I have to say about 03, the original FMA series, is, like you said before, they caught up to the manga and then had to create a story that, like, the rest of it wasn't written by the initial source material.
Right.
And what they came up with is so good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, holy cow, like, who came up with this? Like,
You know, I don't know the answer to that.
yeah.
I need to look that up.
Because whoever they are, I'm their biggest fan.
Yeah,
They're like, the stuff they did with even just like these really imaginative design things with the sort of avoiding spoilers here, the character who, when you see them, they're sort of like hanging upside down.
Yep.
You know, with the glasses. You know?
Yes.
It's like that. I'm like, what am I looking at?
Yes.
And like how they took that in that direction with it. I'm
And
like,
it's such a natural progression for that character.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Like, and like scary, because one of the things that always freaked me out was the idea of medical experimentation stuff as well, which I love how they, like, the whole idea of alchemy being kind of like meshing science with magic.
Yep.
You know, and Like when that show FMA gets going, like I didn't love the initial episode. I think the pilot for it. I don't like the pilot of almost any show. By the way, it's like because the pilot is to get people to just like. It's supposed to be the most serviceable thing. This isn't just anime. This is like most shows out there. The pilot is often something that, not always, but is often just supposed to draw a big crowd. And the first episode of FMA is like, oh, here's a monster. Here's some anime stuff. If like it seemed a lot more like generalized anime stuff, and just what I knew through osmosis, even though it was the first anime I'd ever watched. But then when that show became more its own thing, and of course they go back to the first episode a lot with, they didn't like break any rules in the first one. But when that show like gets to be its own thing that's like unlike the other stuff I had seen or heard of before, it's incredibly great. It's so good. And I'm just saying what everybody says. FMA is the best. So it's so good.
I think for me, the homunculi in 03 shine the brightest. I think that in Brotherhood, they're henchmen and they do their job. They do their job well in Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. I think that the character of Envy is interesting in both iterations. But in Brotherhood, in 03, the idea of how the homunculi are created and how they impact the world around them just by existing, it's such good storytelling.
Yeah.
And like it puts the character the protagonist and like the cast, I guess, like on the side of good in really precarious situations because these are the manifestations of their own sins. Mm-hmm. And I loved that.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, whoever wrote this stuff, it's some of the best stuff out there. It's too good.
Yes.
So, and a great inspiration.
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
So, bringing it, we're going to sort of get on track of wrapping up here. And sure. I want to do that by bringing this back to you and your work here. You've got this first issue out, get in the description, people. And you're well on your way with the rest of these. And this is something you've been cooking up since you were 14.
Yes.
When you got this done, like, and it was officially, like, no more tweaks or anything, but you're like, it's out there now. How did that feel, man?
Man, so my goal was to get it done before New Year's. By 12:01, I was in tears. Like, it was incredible just knowing that, like, it's out there and, like, people like it. Like, I think that we really undervalue how it is to be a creator. It's scary. It's terrifying. And, like, I do commissions. I teach kids and all that stuff. And, like, it's fun. But putting your own stuff out there from your head that has, like, nothing to do with a client or anything like that and getting such high praise, there's nothing like it. Like, it's scary to try to keep up with that. But regardless, I have something that's truly mine out here in the real world. And, like, nothing can beat that. Nothing at all.
That's great, man. I'm so happy for you, dude.
Thank you.
It's accomplishment to make something, and there's been so much build up and lead up to it, hearing how it relates to your personal real life, and being able to talk with you about your work here and like just your process for this kind of thing. It's awesome. Whenever you've got, I forget if you said before, sorry, but about when do you think we're going to have issue 2?
Issue 2 should be done mid to late March.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
soon.
Yep,
Okay.
very
Cool.
soon.
Well, how would you like when you get issue 2 on? How would you like to come back and we could talk about the second one?
I love that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's do it. Okay. This is going to be the Twilight Angel show now, I guess.
appreciate that.
The special series. Awesome. Well, great. Well, that'll be something for everybody to look forward to, and you should probably read this thing so you know what we're talking about.
Yes, you should.
So, Ray, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Of course. This was an honor. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's been my pleasure. So, looking forward to having you back for issue 2. Can't wait to read it. I love how this first one left off. I'm like, all right, where are we going? You know, so that's wonderful. And everybody at home, I've said, look in the description and all that. If you also want to book one of our wonderful spaces here at StudioME for any of your own content creation, you can go to our website at StudioME.me. And if you made it this far, you may as well subscribe, but it's up to you. You're your own person, so whatever the case, you can continue to watch or not, but you're not getting this time back. It's ours now. And we hope you join us next time because we'll be here at StudioME. Bye-bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to start your own podcast, why wait? Reach out to us at StudioMe.me, and I hope you hear me again soon.